And we're live. What's up, everybody? I'm here with James Smiley. I'm sorry we're late. We had to kind of confer behind the scenes about how much value and knowledge bombs James is going to drop in this 45-minute presentation, and definitely come with your questions. And if you're watching live, drop a live hashtag below and let us know where you're watching from.
Awesome. What's going on? Hello.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, I came to know James Smiley because I'm in one of his coaching groups. Colton Crottinger brought me in. Colton is a 2 Comma Club winner, and he's an admin in the ClickFunnels official group, and he's a top affiliate for ClickFunnels. So he's got all these great accomplishments behind him, and he started coaching people with James. And James, I'm not sure how you and Colton connected, but I do know that James is considered to be the #1 B2B digital marketer. You've got 210 million in sales under your belt.
Yeah.
Startups, and you've IPO'd a couple companies. So James is the man to hear from if you want to know about digital marketing, B2B, high ticket sales, all those sorts of things. So
Well,
really
I appreciate
excited.
it, Heidi. Thanks for having me. And yeah, Colton's been to some of my events and stuff at my house, and we don't live that far from each other. And so we've always kind of known of each other, and just having been one of my students and stuff like that. And then I think we got together. Colton is like the networker of networkers. Like he needs to, his next book needs to be like Advanced Dream 100 or something like that. Like he is like the true networker of networkers. And so he can, this guy can, like, if you tell him like, go meet, some famous person, or go get an interview with Rihanna or somebody at the Dallas Cowboys, or some, the guy can do it. I don't know how he figures it out. And so that's pretty much how we met, is, just doing stuff together here locally. And then just started realizing, we had some things in common, and we wanted to work on something really fun together. So we started Mentor Lab. It's gone really awesome. It's been an amazing project this year. We kind of did a 6-month beta together, just kind of pulling it all together. And now we're focused really hard on scaling it out. So it's really, really cool. There's a $1 membership, scholarship for people to get in. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, so you guys can check that out if you're interested in applying for that. I've been in it for a couple months, and there's so much value in there. And you guys bring in Kevin Harrington once in a while, he was one of the hosts of Shark Tank?
Yeah, he was one of the original sharks at Shark Tank. He's done $5 billion in sales. A lot of people don't realize, he started off things like As Seen on TV. He invented the infomercial, all that stuff. Wow. Got Tony Robbins involved in it, all that stuff. But now 80% of his income comes on the internet through digital products and things like that. And so he speaks all over the world on digital. He spoke at Grant Cardone's TEDx events. He speaks all over the country. Me and him have a couple businesses we're doing together. I'm an owner at 6 different companies. So we've got companies that we're doing stuff in India and South Africa, a bunch of stuff in the US. So got 2 small software companies we're working on growing right now. So just a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, my biggest passion has been like working with solopreneurs and like enabling the solopreneur movement. I realized about around 2010, so I guess it's almost 10 years ago now, that like this technology was going to enable people like you and me and all these ClickFunnels people, and
yes.
I knew that like Amazon, FBA, and Shopify, and ClickFunnels, and Stripe, and stuff on your phone, and all this stuff was gonna enable people like us. But then they were going to need help and coaching and, systems and automations and all those things. So mindset stuff sometimes. So anyway, so that's where I've kind of staked out my little area, and I've done some stuff with ClickFunnels, helping them try to sell their company one time, and all the way to, just been featured as like a B2B poster child or whatever you want to call it for them. But overall, I'm just a normal person, got kids, and work really hard. So that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, you're balancing 6 companies and a bunch of kids. That's a lot right there.
Yeah.
To balance. Yeah. How do you do all that without going crazy?
I'm really, really good at scheduling my time. I also work a lot during the night and sleep in. So I do like a very different schedule than most people. I know like there's a lot of things around like getting up, waking up early and stuff like that. But I think also like there's a different level of productivity that can happen at night if you can stay up and be productive. Most people can't, which is totally fine. But if you can be productive, it's like the internet's a lot slower. Your phone's not beeping. No one's messaging you. And there's just, I don't know. It's just something that I got into when I was young, and it's always been helpful for me. Like last night, I was writing a mini webinar until 5:30 in the morning, got it done. And I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to record this right now. And I was like, I'm way too tired to record it. So yeah,
great.
you know, but I, you know, when I do that, I don't wake up at 8 in the morning either, you know, so I'll sleep in a little bit, go do my walk and do, you know, exercise and all that stuff and you know, and be fired up and ready to go by like 11, 12 o'clock, you know, and go at it again. So that's kind of my schedule.
Man, that's like my ideal schedule.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a writer, and so it's hard to like sit and write for long blocks of time during the day because I've got all these emails and like, you know, I'm doing lives in my group, which I love to do, but those need to happen during the day. And I've always been a night person, but I have a little 3-year-old son, and you know, need to take him to preschool in the morning, and I can't really sleep in. Yeah. So it wouldn't really be fair to let my husband handle all that. So maybe someday I'll get back to that schedule.
Yeah. That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, I love working at night. My focus is just way better.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we should do a whole segment on that sometime. The night entrepreneur.
Yeah. Entrepreneur at night.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get started? How did you get your start in the massive like internet marketing space? There's so many people now trying to carve out a place that can feel daunting if you didn't start early. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I was kind of late to the game in the you know, internet marketer space. I wish I would have got involved earlier. You know, like there was already like Russell Brunson, Frank Kern, and basically all the people who came out of this network called GKIC, which is run by Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazier. But that's where you have all your main internet marketers like Jeff Walker, Onyx Singal, Ryan Dice, Russell Brunson, like anybody big pretty much came out of there. Then you had some people come out of like Tony Robbins' group, like Brendan Burchard, Dean Graciosi, you know, those guys. But and then also like there's a lot of, you know, there's like Amy Porterfield, she came from Tony Robbins' group, like but basically, you know, people really spawned out of like those two areas. I kind of came from corporate. And so I was doing consulting really young because I'd been a part of IPOing a big software company. I was a 6th employee. When I left, we had 480 employees. We had $1 billion valuation, and we were the first Google Maps. We were essentially Google Maps before Google like took all our stuff. So yeah, it's funny when Google says, "Hey, we're going to take over." It's like, okay.
Okay. Shoot.
Yeah.
Can't really fight that.
Right. So, yeah. So anyway, we were in Silicon Valley. We were a huge startup. Like we were in a bunch of, you know, in the early to mid 2000s, it was like, we were like up there with like eBay and just all these big startups coming up in Silicon Valley. And then
what was your company called? Because I was there at that time.
It was called Telenet. We were right off the main freeway in Lawrence. We were like 2 blocks off down Lawrence, one of the main roads there.
That name's familiar for sure.
Yeah, that's like one of the main streets in Sunnyvale. But yeah, it was funny because like, you know, you're really growing when you have to move to a new building like every 6 months. Like you're always working property management to like, okay, like how do we get a bigger building? How do we get a bigger, like you're always growing. And so we bounced around Sunnyvale, San Jose, back to Sunnyvale. But we started out in a little like kind of like a blown out subway, like blown out retail location. You know, it was like I mean, I remember like when I walked in, it was like, there's the servers, there's customer service, there's the CEO, and there's me, like all in the same room, you know. And that was pretty much it. You know, I remember that's how we started. And we just grew from there, you know, but I, you know, the 60-second origin story is like, I grew up in Seattle, really, really, really dirt poor. I grew up in a place called Rainier Valley, Beacon Hill. Didn't didn't have any education, didn't have parents who, made money or anything like that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I always had this knack for making money. And I was one of those kids who like really hated to lose. So I don't know where that came from, but for some
Good
reason,
combo.
yeah, I didn't like to lose, and I like to make money. And I found like ways to like flip baseball cards, buy 5-cent candy at the store, sell it for 50 cents on the bus, like just little things like that. And I started realizing like when you're poor, like making a few dollars is a big difference, and
Yeah.
and I remember like hustling to have money for like lunch and stuff like that, because I wanted to like buy lunch, or if I wanted to like there was a kid sale going on of $1 candy bars, and I wanted to like have $1, so I would hustle all morning long to have $1, and I would do that like every single day.
Wow.
And so but yeah, like when I didn't know anything about sales, didn't know anything about B2B, didn't have like a corporate dad or something like that. Like some of my good friends, like Steve Larson, people like, they're cool friends. Like his dad was executive at IBM. Like I wish I had that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, my dad was just a blue collar guy who worked at FedEx, and he loved me and took care of me. But it's like, what I realized growing up is when I worked at FedEx, I remember thinking like, not that I have any problem with people who work at FedEx, but I was like, the people who are like rich millionaires are not working in this warehouse. And I just remember being a teenager thinking that, and not that I had a problem with it, or, I know it provides a great life for a ton of people. And, but I just had this ambition, just to try to do more. And, so yeah, I just like would go there, work for a couple months and quit and try to do something else. But I got my first big break when I was 20 years old. I got hired by a company called Nextel. I was selling this new technology called a BlackBerry. I was one of the first 25 people in the country to do that.
Nice.
I started realizing that I could use email to email customers. So if anybody here has been a B2B salesperson, like you go to a big company, they give you this like spreadsheet of all your customers. Like these are your clients. Well, instead of like calling like everyone else, was cold calling. And that was the name of the game, was like dial for dollars. Every single morning, you're supposed to call like 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just would send one email to 8,000 people that were on my account list. And this was in the year 2000. So like
before like email marketing was invented, really?
Yeah. Like it wasn't even called email marketing. Like it was called like, you're about to get fired, Like my boss was like, dude, do not ever email our clients, that they'll hate you. And I was like, okay. But that's why I was making money. Is like I was emailing people and using email marketing, and then like I remember the first day on the job, I went through training. The first day on my job, I sent an email to 8,000 people, 8,000 businesses, by the way, not just people, 8,000 businesses. And in about 15, 20 minutes, my phone rang. I got my first order for cell phones. I didn't know anything about B2B, didn't know anything about sales, didn't know anything about holding a conversation with, didn't know anything about negotiation, but just because of the volume of people I had hit, I got an order that fast, and I was 300% the quota, ended up going on a trip to Hawaii, like top salespeople in the company. And, that's where I met the owners of Telenet. Actually, was there. They sponsored the event, and there was just a few of them, like three or four people in the company. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I got recruited there, and so it's like one little success, doing well on a job, and allowed another company to go, hey, like maybe we should try to hire this kid. And so I moved to LA, managed sales for the company from California to Florida, and blew the company up. Over in my 20s, I had actually trained over 12,000 B2B reps how to sell our product. So it wasn't just like, I had an army all across the nation. And basically what I was doing and how I crushed all of our competition was I was going to like Chet Holmes events and learning from Chet Holmes, who started Dream 100 and all this stuff. He wrote the book Ultimate Sales Machine, which is the best $10 you'll ever spend on Amazon. If anybody has not bought Ultimate Sales Machine, you should buy that book. And
get it.
because that's actually the first like Dream 100 book ever, was Ultimate Sales Machine. And then I I was also a big Jay Abraham student. I was spending thousands of dollars a year with both of those guys, and that was my education. That was my self-education, was learning through those guys. And so I was taking principles, implementing it into what we were doing. And so instead of me going out and hiring reps, interviewing, dealing with all the HR, all that stuff, I just went to people. I thought, okay, well, who in the cell phone industry has thousands of sales reps? And that became easy. I was like, the cell phone carriers. So then, I had to figure out how to get in, how to pay people, how to do spiffs, how to make people excited, and but yeah, I basically set up a road show that we took all across the country. We did it in 48 of the 50 states. And we literally, every time we stopped, we would be training 300, 400, 500 people. And we could do that like 2 or 3 times a day sometimes. We'd go to St. Louis, we'd do 1,500 reps in one day, training them. We did that for a couple of years, and we crushed it. I mean, the amount of sales and scale we had was crazy. But it was this whole like one to many concept. So like what I was doing was taking these people, putting them on my list, these reps, and then constantly hitting them with content. Like, hey, we're over here. Hey, so-and-so did this. Hey, so-and-so made this sale. Hey, here's an idea. What I mean? It's the same thing we do now on social media, but we were doing it through email because there was no such thing back then. And then we were sending them video. Then we got into sending them video, and it was even crazier because they just loved video. They're like, "Oh my God, there's James on like you can see his face." And for a while, we were doing like walkie-talkie chat groups. So like,
oh, interesting.
This is like pre-social media, but it's the same concept of like we were creating a chat group with like 15,000 people on it, or 4,000 sales reps in the southwest part of the United States or whatever, and everyone's just on there like chatting about hey, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is my training, James, send me my $200 because I did this. Well, and it's just like pumping everyone up, just chatter all day long. But yeah, so like it's almost like I always say like I was in like cycle 0 of like social media, and it wasn't called digital marketing, it wasn't any of that stuff. Like we were putting sales videos on websites, and then that would like sell reps to sign up for us, and then they would fill out an application, and then we'd have somebody call them and pay them spiffs and get all their accounting set up with us so we could pay them. But that is an application funnel. Now it's like we have sophisticated names. That's an application funnel, high ticket funnel, like all those kind of things. But yeah, so I've been doing it since I was in my 20s. It was really, really awesome. And when I first read .com Secrets, I was like, man, this guy Russell, this dude's a genius. Like I was like, this guy has put everything that we do into like a formula, because we were just like running around with the chicken with our head cut off. Like we didn't even see it as a system. We just were doing it, because we thought it made sense. But yeah.
Russell really is a savant when it comes to marketing. He just understands it, completely, and he absorbs it, and then he's able to like push it back out to the masses. So it's a great skill. Yeah. And it sounds like you had some of that with figuring out how to do sales and connect with people like directly. I mean, nobody likes being bothered on the phone. So it's funny to me that they were like, no, don't email them. Like, whatever you do, instead interrupt their day with a phone call.
Right.
So how did you would you say that was instinctual, just figuring out how to do that? Like, from being a kid hustler?
Well, so, digital marketing was always easier because it didn't involve any interaction, and you always had, with technology, technology gives you like an ability to control your time. So like, when somebody replies, if I don't know what to say, I can think about it or research it or talk to somebody, right? Like, so that helped a lot when I was young, but as I got older, I realized like I needed, like when I wanted to cut the deal with, be a part of cutting some big deals with like Sprint or Nextel or Verizon, or, I'd have to go into these regional offices and, talk to VPs and presidents of, who are managing like $1 billion in revenue for the region, and here I am just like a kid from the hood, I'm tucking in my chain in my, what I mean? Like I'm a kid,
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally a kid, like trying to figure out this corporate thing. But I realized like I needed some sales training. So I took my first sales training was with Jordan Belford, who was the Wolf of Wall Street guy.
Wow.
So
that's quite a place to start.
Yeah, it was funny because when I went, somebody recommended, he was doing this thing in LA. I was living in LA, so I went to it. And it was like $3,000 or $4,000. It's a lot of money. And I was like, okay, but we put on the company card. That's how I was funding all this stuff, by the way. It was our company card. And then,
Nice.
so like I went to this thing and I just like, I learned this incredible system. And by the way, I didn't know he had this history. I didn't know he had been in jail. I literally didn't know that at all until I got there. But I remember like he walked up to people and I'm sitting in the front row and he's like doing this whole thing where he's like, sell me this pen. Sell me this pen. And I was like, this is so stupid. If he comes to me.
Is he the one that started that whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I did not know.
So I was like the sixth person in. And so he goes, kid, sell me this pen. And I grabbed the pen and I said, no. And he goes, what do you mean no? And he started laughing. He goes, this kid's got some guts, you know? And he goes, no, you're here to sell things. He goes, are you scared? And I said, I don't know anybody rich who sells a pen. I don't care about. I didn't come here to learn how to sell a pen. And
oh, damn.
So everyone started clapping. He started clapping. He's like, give this kid a hand. He's like, sounds pretty gutsy, even though like didn't like he was. I didn't even understand. Like he was talking about the philosophy of selling versus selling a pen. I didn't even get it. But anyway, long story short, he taught me this whole thing, and then I started developing my own versions of it for what we did. But in short, you know. I mean, I trained 12,000 sales reps, literally trained them how to sell. You know, we have a high ticket course right now. I'm not a really big course person, but I combine courses with coaching, like Mentor Lab and stuff like that. But just because I know that this is actually how people learn. Like, it's actually easy to sell a course, which is cool. Like, people who do it make a lot of money. But the reality is, and even the course creators will tell you this, the people who buy the courses, like only like 4 or 5% of them actually take the course, you know.
Yeah, that's been me for sure.
Yeah, which is like, hey, I'm not bashing course creators. I'm just saying like that is the industry, and I'm just in a position where like I would rather do something that I know can be more effective, which is like mentoring and helping and walking with people through the process. But anyway, so what I've learned in sales is, you know, up like 70-80% of the sale can be how you set it up. You know, like if it's set up properly, the process of doing the call or doing the meeting or whatever it is can actually go really smooth. Like I know a guy who he does sales, high ticket sales, like $20,000, $10,000 sales, and he does it through email and PM.
Wow.
He's got a whole system around it. But see, when people hear that, they're like, oh man, everyone says you can't sell above $2,000 if it's virtual, like you got to get them on the phone. And that is true. But if you set it up right and you get the right person in the right conversation, like, and you've set it up and built the authority and built the demand, then really like there's only a few other questions that need to happen, you know? So I'm not saying that's possible for everybody, but I am saying like the pre-frame and like what Russell calls the pre-frame, I guess Dan Kennedy started it, like called the pre-frame, like that whole thing, getting somebody set up is really the key, you know? So if you want, I can go into 2 or 3 things there if that helps your audience, or we can go to something else. But
no, I think so. In fact, I'm dying to know, because I have a coach who's having me actually message people on LinkedIn and Facebook and try to get them on a phone call and not have it be like the message is the pitch, but then kind of like introduce them to my program I'm creating. But I'm having a hard time like figuring out the right message to send people. And that might be because they don't know me and I haven't built up enough authority yet. So yeah, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So I have done, I mean, I would bet you we have sent a couple 100,000 PMs through LinkedIn over the years. We were doing LinkedIn before Microsoft owned it, like a long time ago. And it used to be the gold mine of gold mines for B2B. It still is a good gold mine, but it used to be like back in the SEO days where like you could just fake SEO and like all of a sudden you were like the top ranked plumber in New York City or something like that. Just like with one person running the company. But LinkedIn PM used to be like that. Like if you want to get a hold of an executive at Amazon, PM them on LinkedIn. I mean, it was that easy back in the day. But so what happens on LinkedIn is they're just getting into the content game. So they've done a lot of big improvements in the last year, really, which is the first big move to content. But so the issue and the thing that people have told them is like, the users have told them is that if somebody doesn't understand a little bit about me, then the chances of me interacting with them on your platform and there being a believability factor is very low,
Mhm.
right? I'm just somebody they don't know who wants something, right?
Right.
But if they're seeing something in the news feed or in getting some information about me, or I say, hey, I start a chit chat conversation. Hey, what is it you do? Thanks for your friend request. And somebody clicks on my profile, sees my video, sees my content. Like, the more content they receive, the more they understand about me. And that is moving the sales conversation so much further down the road. That's taken 2 hours of talking in 3 minutes will take 2 hours of talking out of the window, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that our salespeople ask everybody is they say, well, what do you know about James? Or if it's me and Colton's thing, what do you know about James and Colton? And we document, like, what do these people know? And the best part is they don't know everything, which actually means we're doing it right. So some people, like, especially when I was young, I used to think, oh man, they got to know everything. Do they know I spoke at CES? Do they know I spoke with Gary Vaynerchuk? Do they know I spoke at AT&T Stadium with Robert Herjavec? Do they, like, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. Like, the only thing that matters is they say, hey, I know James did this, and that's really all I know. Okay, cool. So then we take that and we parlay it with what they want and why they're on the call. And it's interesting how those two are always correlated. They're almost always correlated. Like, if the sales is going to go well, what they want and what they know about me are very similar. Like, they want digital marketing help and they know what I did in digital marketing, or, they want agency help and they know that I ran a 7-figure agency and have this big swipe file on how to run an agency. Like, or they want, consultancy stuff or be a consultant. And they know, like, I was one of the highest paid consultants, did consulting for big software companies and stuff like that. Like, so like our pre-frame is really why they get on the phone, and it allows that conversation to go a lot smoother. Because at the end of the day, when you're on a call, the number one objective isn't I don't have the money. It's not I need to think about it. Right? Well, this is what you hear, but what people are really saying is not that they're bad, but what they're really saying is I don't trust you yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, they don't trust James or Colton or Heidi or Russell or whatever. Like, so how do you get them past that? So, like, the only way that I've really seen it work really well is if you pre-frame isn't good, you have to create a tremendous amount of scarcity and urgency, which then, like, on the call puts all this pressure, which some people just don't like. Whether you're the buyer or the seller, like, some people just don't like that, right? And I prefer not to train people or put people into a system like that, because the data shows that most salespeople don't like selling like that. They will when they're under pressure to make money and put food on their table, but they don't actually enjoy it. And so, so I always say, like, like better marketing will position people, or content marketing, social media will position people so that when they get on the call, there's more trust built, there's more awareness of who you are, what you do, things you've done for people, and that significantly moves people down the path of having some trust built. So you will have some things like people will say, well, well, this is the day of the internet, and there's a lot of scams out there and things like that of people who, go on Fiverr and create a video testimony or whatever. You will run into some of that. It's just the reality of it. And people who are skeptical are just skeptical. Like, you're just not going to be able to sell everybody. But I can tell you that, like helping people understand, like, okay, for instance, like, we just wrote a mini webinar for a thing we do called Mentor Genius. And so it's this new software, and it's like a done for you service built into a software. And so it's something brand new. It's not really because it's done for you, you can only do like 10 people a month. So we're not going to like big promote it, because this is not even a true scarcity play. This is an honest, like, resource play. I literally could, like, because it's my own team doing the work, I couldn't even do 10 people. Like we probably do like 5 to 8 people a month, you know, just building funnels for people and stuff. So, so like in this webinar, I'm doing things such as, there's a little bit of authority plays happening. So I did like the 5-minute webinar script. So it's like, there's a little bit of authority plays. There's some credibility plays. There's also like some, you know, there's obviously some scarcity built into it, but like we're setting it up so that where we want their mindset to be when they get on the call is like, we think about, okay, when they get on the call, you know, where do we want them to be at mentally? We want them to know this about James. We want them to know this about our product. Okay. So that was something we decided. We're like, we don't want them to get on a call and not know what this is. So we put the word mentor genius in the presentation. That was one thing. Okay. Back in the day, it was very typical in a webinar that you wouldn't even hear about the product until the last like 10%, right?
Right. I'm still kind of used to that.
Yeah. So see, more and more people are educated now on webinars. It's not like it was 2 years ago. And so like when the perfect webinar script was written, that day and age, even Russell would say is it not, that's not to say that doesn't still work in a lot of areas, but it's much more diversified now. Whereas like that used to be the key script. Now it's like a lot of different scripts will work. Even like one of my good friends, Dan Henry, like he has webinars where you get on there, he's selling a $5,000 product. He's like, you get on, he's like, hey, I think he says in the first like 1 minute, he's like, hey, let's just be honest. You know, usually when you opt into a webinar, you're going to get this like 8-minute to 12-minute timer. You're going to be looking at this thing. And then you're realizing like, this is pre-recorded. Like, why am I waiting? He's like, what? And then the guy's going to get on there and pretend like he's talking to all these people and like, hey, where are you from? Where are you from? Jump in the chat. He goes, you know what? He's like, why don't I just tell you what you want to hear? Instead of having you on here for an hour and a half, like, why don't I just tell you what you want to hear? And so, like, it's like stuff like that is, I mean, he's done multi-millions of dollars on that that's his like sold out courses webinar, multiple millions of dollars on that thing. And like, no one hardly knows that that's even out there now, you know? And so I think it's much more diversified now than it ever has been in terms of like scripts. But so we decided like, what are the outcomes we wanted? We wanted them to kind of know what the product was. That way our salespeople don't have to introduce it. There's not this shock and awe effect. We also wanted them to know in general what the pricing was. So we said, you know, we throw out a number at the end, something like, you know, this is, you know, we say like something is valued. I can't remember what it is, to be honest. It says something is valued at $10,000. This is about 70 to 80% off of that or something like that. I think we say 60 to 70% off of that. So they can kind of do the math in their head. And they're like $3,000, $4,000, $4,000. So see, we're pre-framing them so that when they get on the call, there's not somebody with $200 in their bank account going, oh my gosh, you know? You know, so it's all those kind of things. Like you have to understand, like what do you want this customer to think and feel? Really feel? What do you want them to think and feel on the call? And then how do you set up your pre-framing, your messaging? It could be like the thank you page. When they book a meeting, and then there's a thank you page. We have some applications where you come through, like it's common. Like right now, we were just doing this thing where it was like, hey, get a free call with James, okay? Like James will get on the phone with you and do this whole consultation. So like we had like 20, 30 people book, but then on the thank you page it says, hey, in order to get on this call, you have to do this homework. Watch the video. Well, guess what? Like 80% of the people don't watch the video. And the video is like 8 minutes long, okay? And I'm giving a good content. I'm not like just blabbing about something. So I'm giving good content. And then so like that eliminates 80% of the people. Then the people who watch, they just got indoctrinated into something. And then I say, hey, what I need you to do is email me with these 3 things. So here's my personal email. Email me these 3 things and use this headline. And if I see this headline, then I'm going to confirm your meeting. So that alone, like 90% of the people who booked are gone. And I only have 2 or 3 meetings, but I know when I get on, those people are super serious. You know what I mean? Like those are the true entrepreneurs, you know, and I'm not being derogatory towards anybody, but you start out as a wantrepreneur. Everyone does, you know, I did, everyone does. You're just trying to figure it out. Do I really want to do this? Like, is this me? You know, like you're just figuring it out. And then eventually, if you can, by definition, if you can take on risk, which is really the main difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur, is if you can stomach risk. If you can take on risk, you become an entrepreneur inherently. And, so like, because a lot of these people, they see this and they're like, well, I don't want to waste my time. See, they're not willing to take any risk. They're not even willing to take 10 minutes of their time to get on the phone with me. So therefore, they don't value that phone call, which means they're not going to value my information, which means they're just not ready to get on the phone, right? Like I need to warm that person up more. So we push them into like a nurture sequence where they'll hear more about us, maybe get some more free stuff, experience our stuff more. And then, sooner or later they'll end up getting another offer again for something that's relevant to them. But yeah, that's how we set it up so that we try to set it up so people who are ready can get on the phone. We try to, even though they schedule, that doesn't mean we talk to them. We continue to try to say, hey, if you're not ready, please cancel your meeting. And we don't say it like that, but essentially that's if you're reading between the lines, that's what we're doing,
Yeah.
And so it's really cool because we'll have people who are really well-meaning, but they literally just have no means, no time, no money. And so those well-meaning people who fill out applications and apply to everything, we just can't meet with all of them, right? Just because of time, right? And the worst thing in sales for somebody, especially somebody who's new, is like if you get on the phone and 50% of your calls are dealing with people like that, well, and I shouldn't say dealing with them is a bad choice of words, but you're trying to help people like that. The issue there is eventually like you want to help them. If you're sincere and your product helps people, like you want to help them. So then you start getting into like, well, maybe I should discount it. Maybe my price is too high, but it's not. It's the marketing isn't set up right. And so like if you discount it, what I've realized in business since I was in my 20s, like everyone feels bad. The customer feels bad because you can't serve them as much because you don't have the money. The customer isn't as involved because they're not as invested. Like you can't pay your own bills as well because you're not getting the money you need. Like it just messes up the whole ecosystem, right? So like, getting the right person on and really like helping explain to that person is really, really key, So that's some of the things we do in the pre-frame.
Awesome. That's great stuff. Yeah. I think a lot of people in this group, and myself included, still thought that the perfect webinar script was the way to go, and you needed to stick with that. And it's just good to know that there's other options.
Yeah, it's good. Sam Ovens at 50 million never used it. Dan Henry doesn't use it. He used it on his first one, but he doesn't use it anymore. A bunch of like if you look at all the big players, like anyone from Billy G to all these guys who are running webinars, they're not using Perfect Webinar. But I will tell you this. Let me make sure I preface that is not saying Perfect Webinar doesn't work either.
Right.
I mean, we've made a lot of money on Perfect Webinar. I'm blessed by Perfect Webinar. Like, if I had nowhere else to go, I would do Perfect Webinar. And to be honest, like if our product, if our Mentor Genius product could support more people, we might do a longer webinar. So we might look at some of these other formats. But what I've realized the more you have success as an entrepreneur, the more you gain confidence, and you have wins and big wins, and you gain confidence in it's almost like you validate these internal thoughts you have. And that's part of the problem when you're young in the entrepreneur world is there's no one there when you make a win or when you have a thought, but you don't act on it. There's no one there to validate, say, hey, you should have did that. Hey, that was a good thought. Hey, good job on that, right? Which is one of the reasons why coaching is super valuable in the entrepreneur game. But like the more confidence you get, you start to realize that you actually do know how to talk to your client, and you do know how to sell your client, and you do know what their issues are. And if you just get on camera or a screen flow or whatever, and if you, number one, try to be sincere, but number two. So what I wouldn't say is nobody just get on and just think, well, I don't really need to know how to sell. I can tell you for sure that is not the case because people are in a certain psychology and you need to understand that psychology or you're going to lose. You know what I mean? That's like saying in sports, like the other team's going to be running all these scripted plays. Let's just go out there and throw the ball anywhere. You know what I mean? Like no one does that, right? Like you need to know how to play within the structure of the game. But what I'm saying is like improvising. And so for instance, like the 5-minute webinar thing, they call it 3 secrets, but for what I was doing, it was really 3 shifts in your business. And so I called it the 3 shifts, and I'm fully comfortable and confident that that's going to work, because I know like it's not the word secret. It's, what I mean? Like, so there's little things like that like can become almost like a, what do you call it? It's like a, what do you call it when like somebody thinks something's lucky? It's like not stereotype, but superstition. Like people get superstitious about like every little phrase and every little like, oh my God, like if you don't pre-frame it this way, and if you don't, but it's the superstitions, like you don't know like what's a superstition and what's not in a script, but people tend to think like, well, I said this line, so therefore everyone must have bought because of that line. But you don't know, like just because I use that line, I may have pre-framed my clients may be different than yours. You know what I mean? And so I think like that's what I try to teach people is like, be confident in the things because you know your client way better than I'll ever. You know your industry way better than I'll ever know it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You know those things. And so, I think the more and more people are being successful, they're learning to like just be confident about what they do, what they know, and how to communicate, what they know. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, let me know how else I can help here. Like if you want me to talk about the sales process, the call process, or just whatever you want.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about the call process? Because like I said, I'm in the phase right now where I'm just trying to get people on a call. I've had a couple calls that I feel have gone pretty well, but it's not my comfort zone at all. I don't really know how to prep for it. The one thing I do know that I've been told and tried out myself is just to ask a lot of questions in the beginning, like really get people talking, because they'll kind of start telling you what they need and what their problems are. And then you can kind of address those. That's how true. You do it as well?
Mm-hmm. That is true. Yeah. So without a doubt, like just in prepping yourself for the right psychology in general, you want to try to build some rapport in the beginning. So something simple like taking 3 minutes, looking them up on Facebook. If they have a profile, they probably will. If not, look them up on LinkedIn. If I can talk to somebody on the phone and be looking at their face, it's just a better experience. I'm understanding them a whole lot differently. My brain is reacting totally different when I'm looking at them.
So video calls over phone calls.
Video is really good. In fact, a lot of people are doing that, and a lot of high-ticket sales programs are doing that. But even if I can't do video, even just looking at their photo on Facebook is helpful, because you start to understand a little bit more about their tones and their tonality when you're looking at them. You can see like, oh, I can totally see that person saying that.
Right.
So I think like having a minute or 2 or 3 where you're building some good rapport in the beginning is really important. And then I think going into like what we call the probe, or a lot of people call it the probe, which is asking the general questions, right? And so the best thing I can tell people, like a strategic way to go about that, whether it's in B2B, selling $100 million system or selling like $1,000 product on the phone, is trying to understand current state and future state. Now, there's a lot of different ways I've heard people explain this. I've heard Jim Rohn say, you have to get them to understand hell, which is where they live, and heaven, where they're trying to go. And he's like, if you don't think that they're in hell, then do not sell your product, because you have to see that they are in this state of like drastic need, and they are in a place where like, if they don't get your product, then something drastic is horrible is going to happen to them. And your product provides the utopic heaven state, or whatever you want to call it. And so like, he's like, the bridge between like, hell and heaven is like your product. And then like the more sophisticated like business way to say that now is like, people will say like, well, say like this is a really sophisticated way to say it. You're like, hey, so if I were to ask you, where do you want to be in the next 12 months? Let's say you look back on October 7th, 2020, your birthday has passed, It's a new year. The summer just passed. The leaves are starting to fall. Like you're putting them in state, right?
Yeah.
But you look back on this day and this conversation and you say, what would have to happen in that past 12 months for me to be really happy and satisfied with what just happened? What would that look like for you? That's a really sophisticated way of saying it, right?
Yeah.
It's the future state against the past, the future state against against the existing state, and like trying to understand the dichotomy between those two. So that's I think in the general probing questions, you have to get that out. That is 10 times more important than like, what do you do? Like, honestly, that is more important than like, well, who are your competitors? How big is your email list? Like all that's kind of cool to know. But if I only could ask one question, that's what I would ask. I mean, honestly, there's only one. Now, I usually don't like to start with it. I usually like to start with something like you were talking about, just like, tell me a little bit about what you do. Because it's just like more of a friendly way to transition in. But honestly, if I had one question or if I have to do a 15-minute call, I'm going to go right to that. I'm going to go right to that kind of question of some form of asking that, like, where are you at now? How much money are you making right now? How much money do you want to be making in a year? So that when you look back, you are totally satisfied. Like maybe you didn't hit the grand slam, okay, but you're happy. You're happy with where you're at, right? You know you're making progress, right? And by the way, if you tell me you want to go from $0 to $1 million, you better hang up the phone, because my next question is going to be, are you willing to work that hard? Because I can't tell you how to do that, but the reality is, I'll tell. It's funny how many people say that, by the way. But then I tell them, like, do you know how much money like a 1%er makes? They make up $412,000 a year, or 420, somewhere around 400,000. So I was like, and look it up on your phone. Like, so when you just said $1 million, like, do you even understand at all what you just said? Like, I was like, you're telling me like your company's in poverty, like below the poverty line, and in 12 months you want to be a top 0.5% in the world, and you want to work 3 hours a week? Bye. You know what I mean? Like, I don't say it literally like that, but anyway, okay. So that's really important. And then I think the next place we try to go. So once we have this like establishment of where they're trying to go, a really good question to ask is something like, what do you think you guys need to do? What do you think your organization needs to do for you guys to get there? Or if they're really sophisticated and executive, that's almost like too elementary to say. So you might want to say, what's stopping people as smart as you with all the people you have in the network and the partners, the ecosystem you have? What's stopping you guys from doing that right now? So it's a reciprocal way of saying, dude, will you tell me how to sell you? That's really what I'm saying, right? Because whatever they say is what I need to tell them. Do you understand? Like, they just told you, hey, my heaven looks like this. I need to be making $15,000 a month. I need they're going to say, I need a lead gen system. I really suck at marketing. I need a funnel up, blah, blah, blah. So that's all the things I'm writing down because you want to talk about your product, but more importantly, you want to talk about their needs.
Right.
And if you don't address everything that they just said, you will not sell them. Like, you have to completely eliminate every possibility that you couldn't do that. And if you honestly can't, then you should tell them, hey, there's someone else. Or I even teach people, like, set up referral programs so that you can get paid to pass somebody off to someone else or whatever, or have a downsell option or whatever. This is how we maximize lifetime value of leads and clients. I'm really into lifetime value, not just like what I would call a tactical business is like, I'm a coaching program. You get on the phone with me. We either sell you or not. If we sell you, you go through this system. There's only really one endpoint. Versus like strategic is like, okay, how can we help you? If you're not ready here, how do we get you into the right vehicle or program or person or connected? Like, why would I not refer somebody to another coach? Especially if they'll pay me a commission. They pay their salespeople. Why would they not pay me? I guarantee they'll pay me. But most people just don't pick up the phone and make that deal, Right. We're doing something right now where we're calling on a lot of other coaches and saying, hey, can we market to your list and we'll pay you thousands of dollars every time we sell? And they're like, are you kidding me? Of course. But I'm like, hey, I only want to market to your dead people, to the people you could not sell to. So it's a super easy pitch for me, right? I'm like, people are like, you mean the people who we didn't want it to sell to, we couldn't sell, you want to pitch your product? Sure. And they're like, if I can make $3,000 or thousands of dollars, like on that, sure. Per sale, sure. So, okay. So sorry. So just coming back to the actual call, there's a lot of little steps that happen, but one of the biggest issues I think I should address here, just to add a lot of value to people, is like objections, right? Like, like it's funny, like it is so easy for a sales trainer to go through like, hey man, here's the 12 steps to a sell or the 5 steps to a sell. But like when it comes to objections, like no one has an answer. What I mean? It's like, well, what do you do when they don't have money? Well, if they don't have money, then, you need to, see if you want to call them back in 3 months. Like that doesn't help you, so there's things you can do. So this is what we do.
I think Colton just joined, by the way.
Colton?
I'm just, yeah.
Nice.
If you look on StreamYard, it just says Facebook user, but I'm pretty sure that's Colton.
Woohoo! What's up, Colton?
What's up? Woo!
My man.
Yeah.
You want to disposition your calls. Even if you've only done like 3 calls, you want to disposition them, which really means what was the outcome? Okay. And it's more important to track the losses than the wins is important. You can learn a lot from dispositioning those, but really I want to know, like, why did they not buy? So we'll create like 3 or 4 categories, like no money, no urgency, just bad fit overall, like those kind of things. But really no money, no urgency is the top 2. Okay. For us and what we do as solopreneurs. Okay. So it really boils down to no money or no urgency. Both of those, we say those are both our issues. Okay. Right. So if we need to have different financing options, credit options, ways for them to get credit, or we need to probe for credit earlier in the call. That way we're not spending 45 minutes or an hour on a call when somebody doesn't have anywhere near the money, right? So a lot of times, like there's some feelers that we'll put out in the beginning, and if they're not at a certain revenue, or they're not, their business isn't at a certain size, and they haven't served X amount of clients, we will throw in a credit probe in the beginning where we'll say something like, hey, let me take a sidebar on this conversation for just a second, if you don't mind, because I just wanted to think about something just to make sure we're both maximizing our time here. If on this call, you learn about something that can completely change your business, and let's just say hypothetically, okay, you go, man, this is unbelievable. Like I need to do this. This will change my business. Okay. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's just say it does. Okay. Do you have cash or credit to invest into yourself, like significantly today? That's a good question. And it's non-threatening. It's a good question. I didn't say, do you have $10,000 or $30,000 right now? But I just asked a probe just to see. Okay. And so what I've learned through doing that for 14 years, I learned that through Jay Abraham, literally when I was like 22 or something like that. So it's been a long time. Is I've learned that if somebody has money, they will not come out and go, oh man, you have no idea how much money I have. Do you know who I am? Like they don't flag it. They don't say I've got the money, So I'm not looking for that. But what I am looking for is the person who hesitates. That tells me that this person is about to bluff me for the next 45 minutes and then pull out the whole, I don't, you know what I mean? Because it's hilarious. Like they're going to sound so sophisticated. They're going to sound like they got all their stuff together, but really they're just posturing through the call. And whenever I sense that, I'm like, okay, there's the clarity on this call is not happening. And I know the wheels are going to fall off at the end. So, but that's a really good probe to have in the beginning is in the first 10 minutes, you can ask that question. It's not like the first thing you say, but it's a fair thing, right? Because you don't want them to be on for 45 minutes or an hour or however long it takes. Back when I was younger, I used to take calls 2 or 3 hours. I used to sit in a meeting, 3 hours in a meeting, and then realize the guy has no money.
Oh boy.
And I got 2 or 3 people with me, and they're all, we leave, and they're like, dude, you're an idiot. Why'd you waste all over time? You know what I mean? And so I learned that really young, like if you have any hesitation that they may not have the money, you should probe, early. And it is a very ethical thing to do because, you're a business and they're a business, right? And if somebody, very seldom, maybe 2 or 3% of the time, you'll get somebody who gets offended by that. That is somebody who is not a real business person because
it's also business, right?
Yeah, that is somebody who is really posturing because like they don't want to share but and you're not saying like, hey man, lay all your cards out, like tell me exactly where your money's at. Like you're not saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like in general, are you the type of person who invests into yourself? Do you have access to cash or credit? And then if I want to go further, because sometimes they'll say, well, how much or whatever, and I'll don't ever say the price, but you want to throw out something general, like we have programs anywhere from $2,000 to $30,000, all the way up and down the scale. And I don't want to take the next hour and explain them all to you because that'll take me at least an hour or two. But yeah, why don't we just chit chat for a few more minutes, and just see if one of them qualifies for you or for where you're at. But if you were to just go, man, I need to pull the trigger on this, like, do you have that kind of money and cash on hand? And honestly, like, are you willing to pull the trigger on that? Like, are you the type of person who would do that?
Yeah.
Because if they're the person who's like, they never make a buying decision on a call, they will tell you. It's funny. They will go, well, I just want to let you know how I am. I just never make a decision on the first call, so, or they'll tell, one thing we have found out is usually the people who don't have money will tell you. And that's super helpful and that's super cool. That was going to be my next question. Like, how do you gracefully
exit the call if they're just like, no, I don't have, like, I'm broke?
So number one, don't just end the call. Okay, now you're going to sound like a total jerk.
Yeah.
And truthfully, you're kind of being a jerk, right? Like,
right.
Try to find out something that they're doing that you can give them 5 minutes of help, point them in the right direction, or get them on a call with someone else, or say, hey, what I want to do is I got another call coming up, but what I want to do is I want to get you on the phone with one of these other 3 people. Do you mind if I personally set up a call with me, you, and let me figure out which one of these 3 people is going to be best for you with where you're at? They have programs that are much more economical and better for you. But I want you to get taken care of. And so is it okay if I email you like in the next couple of days and I'll get you set up?
Nice.
You know what I mean? And so you want to still help them. You know what I mean? And even if you don't know anybody, like you'd be surprised if you take a call, can't help somebody, say that line, and then the next 3 days, you email 1 or 2 influencers a day. You'd be surprised how many people will go, sure, I'll pay you 20%. Send them my way.
Nice. Yeah.
And so that's where I try, because at the end of the day, like the difference between a customer and a client is by definition, a client is somebody that you take under your care. You care for, basically you care, you give a rip. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people, they treat people like a customer, which is, it's just transactional. Dude, you going to make this thing or not? You going to buy or not? It's just transactional. And that's why those people are here today, gone tomorrow. That's why those high ticket sellers, if they're not with some big company that's making a lot of money, they can't get little companies off the ground. The transactional businesses, those are all being sucked up. They're either going to go out of business in the next year or 2. They're going to merge with other people. Like this is the standard thing that happens in all industries is they either go out of business or they merge or they're just done either way. But that's happening with all the transactional businesses right now. You're seeing people just, go by the wayside. But the strategic companies, the people who are trying to help somebody and they're saying, okay, like, well, I do this, but also, why should, like, if somebody's going to build funnels, and somebody who can build that funnel for them, why shouldn't you refer them over? And then when they build that funnel, they're going to need somebody to maintain that funnel, right? So why shouldn't you refer them to a company that does funnel support for $97 a month? That can, and you make a commission on that. And then, you know what I mean? Like this is still your client and this person is still under your care. You know what I mean? Even though it's not you who may be doing all the work. But that's how you really maximize lifetime value. And I think build really strategic businesses. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely gotten on calls before with people and they're kind of like, well, unless I know that you have 3,000 to invest with me, I don't want to give you my whole plan because I don't know. I've had calls with people who like coach you through doing a launch, but they're like, we can get on a call, schedule a call with me. I'll give you a whole plan. And if you like it, you can invest with me. But what this guy did was he said at the beginning, like, well, if you don't have $3,000 right now, we probably shouldn't take that step forward. And I kind of felt like, oh, well, now I'm just hanging. I'm like no better off than I was before.
Yeah.
I might have like tried to figure something out and get some credit or something to invest with this guy, but he kind of like rejected me.
Yeah, well, what I would tell everybody on that is that is super common. In fact, I would say like 80% of salespeople out there are doing it that way. And they're doing it that way because they know that there's a bunch of new solopreneurs who don't know enough about business, haven't been in these negotiations, and they know that they can pick off one here, one there, and build a business around picking off people. But I would encourage you to not do that. That like if you get a sense that this person doesn't care about you, they don't care about you. Trust me. Like, and if that's how they're treating you in the beginning, this is the first time you've interacted with them. Like, if that's how they're treating you in the beginning, it's very rarely going to get better. You know what I mean? It's like when your first date a lot of times is like the best, and then it's like you got to work on it from there. Not saying the relationship couldn't get better, but it's like you got to work to make the relationship better. But like the first few dates or the first kiss or whatever, like those are the memorable moments. Like, but if your first touch point with somebody is like horrible experience, like, and anybody has any sense of like fear of missing out, like it's sad to me how like marketers in the internet marketing space outwardly promote FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm like, you are literally telling people to make a fear-based decision, like that's not an intelligent decision, not a decision. Like emotional is one thing, right? Like everyone buys on emotion. If you really got down to it, I buy a car, phone, anything based on emotion. But like, there's actually people now who promote like emails and stuff is like, here, if you struggle with FOMO, buy this, and I cannot believe like people fall for that. I'm like, oh my God, this person's literally telling you they're going to play to your fears. Like making decisions based on fear psychologically lowers you down like the lowest part of the food chain. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and people fall for that every single day. It's sad. It's sad.
I know. I still fall for it. I'm a marketer, but if someone is like, this is the only time price is going to be this low, I'm like, oh my God, I better buy it right now, even though I know that that's probably BS, but it still works. Like most of the time, as long as it's something. I mean, especially if it's something really cheap, but that I think would be really valuable. Like, like I want to buy it.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like true scarcity and someone who's just pitching FOMO, like they're trying to scare the crap out of you. It's like, I tried to think like, okay, like, well, number one, whenever there's a massive wave of people moving to buy something, I would never buy that. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I just know like, unless it's like a big established company like Amazon or something, like, you don't see like the industry leaders doing that.
Right.
You don't see, like, I have no problem with like some, like, especially Russell's like really good at this, like, but like, you don't see like Billie Jean, Frank Kern, like, you don't see all the big guys like buying it. Right. So like that's a first indication that like I need to pump the brakes and think about like, is this really for me? Because chances are, and just I think for time I need to jump on another call here in a second, but like what I would tell everybody here is like the thing that will help you the most is getting somebody who will work with you. You know what I mean? Like getting that personalized help. You look at anybody you look up to. Okay, whether it's your pastor, some Dalai Lama, or I don't know who you look up to. Okay, like Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, Amy Porterfield, Oprah, whoever you look up to. Okay, they all got big or did well because of mentorships. And people, and like,
right. I
say this all the time. Like you've never heard these people go, man, if you just took this 997 course, like you have no idea how much money you would make. Like I have never heard Elon Musk, Russell Brunson, like I've never heard anybody say that. Especially like, if you just bought this $37 software widget, oh my God, your business would flip. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, I mean, most of us still need a coach or some extra help to figure out what to do with these courses and these things that we buy.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much overwhelm. There's too much information.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And so that's one of the biggest things that that I try to focus on is like providing a step-by-step path that like people can get on those success paths of whatever they're trying to do and just walk down that path and realize like you only need to do one thing at a time. That is the honest truth. Like you only need to be doing one thing at a time.
Right.
Like I didn't try to build my funnel last night and my webinar at the same time. You know, like I got to write a webinar script. I got to get it recorded. Then I need to build a funnel. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's an order, and I didn't like go out and make a bunch of social media posts and do a bunch of video content in the same time. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's an order that things should get done.
Yeah.
And, so that's honestly, that's why we even have a company, because that's what we do. It's actually, see, like the reason I got into this game is, number one, I'm really passionate about the solopreneur movement because kind of like how I grew up and stuff. So it's just kind of my thing. And kind of, I got tired of just like helping very political companies. Like, just to be honest, like I just don't like that. And so anyway, it's a whole nother story. But like the problem that I knew was going to come up with all these solopreneurs was they weren't going to have success systems. They weren't going to know like what to do and what, like things that seem fundamental, they were going to struggle with, you know? And so I said, I think I can transition my company and help them, you know? So that's what we've been doing since 2015. It's been awesome. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. We need more people like you out there who are doing this ethically and truly helping solopreneurs.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that about how to do sales and the call process. And, you know, I think this is a sticking point for a lot of entrepreneurs. It definitely is for me because, you know, I'm like a writer, introvert person. I never considered myself a good salesperson, but I think there are tactics and there are ways that, you know, I can make the sale, but still be myself and still connect authentically with my potential customers. So
that's true.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate you and your audience. And if I can ever help you guys out, let me know.
Okay. Thanks so much, James.
All right. Appreciate it.
Bye.